to everyone joining us from wherever you are. This webinar will be recorded, and also there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. So feel free to throw in your questions throughout the next hour. We'll be together and we'll make sure to answer any questions that you may have. So we are thrilled to have you with us today and know this will be a game-changing session on integrating AI into your finance operations. I'm Lillian Buziak, Chief Revenue Officer at Capris AI. I've spent a big part of my career helping finance teams transform their operations through technology, and more recently, I've been focused on helping CFOs and their teams embrace AI to drive business impact, providing practical solutions to reduce reporting time and improve decision-making. I'm super excited to be presenting alongside Edward Roski today. For those of you who may not know Edward, he's a seasoned data scientist with over 25 years of experience at the intersection of technology and finance. He's a founder and co-founder of multiple successful companies, including Interrail, Argonaut, and Dawnward, and the host of the Asking Good Questions podcast. Edward has been very fortunate to travel to over 85 countries, sharing his expertise. And I'm proud to say he's also an investor in Capris, and most importantly, he's a great friend. So Edward and I have been collaborating recently on this topic because we both see the same thing happening in finance departments everywhere. Teams are drowning in tons of manual processes, while AI solutions that could transform their operations sit unused. So today we're going to change that together. Edward and I will be walking you through a roadmap, provide understanding on where AI fits in your current environment, and share real-world examples of finance teams who've who've transformed their operations. By the end of our time together today, you'll walk away with actionable strategies you can implement immediately. So let's dive in. And let's start with the question I know many of you are thinking. Why are we still doing finance like it's 2022? I mean, it doesn't seem that long ago. It's only 3 years ago. But this is what most finance orgs look like. Buried under a paper avalanche, sprinting toward yet another close cycle, eyes glazed over from spreadsheets. And then there's AI, calm, collected, not sweating payroll or wondering if they remembered to VLOOK up the right range. So which version of your workday would you choose? I know which one I want. A CFO I recently have done work with told me she hired 5 new analysts because they were always behind. A month later, she was still behind. Plus, she had to budget for more snacks because so much of it was being taken from the break room. She then decided to give an AI app a shot. It worked through the night and had the entire QBR ready before breakfast. This was her quote to me. It didn't ask me one clarifying question, and it never asked for a break. You didn't come here for a TED Talk on AI's philosophical purpose. You came because your tech stack is already giving you enough trouble without someone telling you to throw it out. But I promise we're talking bolt on, not blow up. Our goal today is to leave you with practical, proven ways to turn what you already own into something exponentially smarter. The modern finance team is like a medieval scribe with a laser printer. Endless data, zero time. We've all built data lakes, warehouses, and still we're manually copying journal entries like it's 1999, actually $14.99. You're not short on reports, you're short on answers. And integrating AI is how we change that. It's time we let people do what they got their degrees in. None of us got degrees in ticking and tying data. In the AI world, your analysts aren't crunching, they're interpreting. Your forecasts don't come late. They ping your phone with, hey, this quarter is way off expectations. And you're not buried in variance, you're making moves. Seriously, that really is what AI is doing for teams who have integrated smartly. So before we sprint toward the future, we'll need to map the trail. And somebody who's better than me to look into a crystal ball or plan the future is my friend Edward Roski. So Edward, I'm going to let you take it from here.
Yes, thank you, Lillian, for also recognizing that in addition to being a data scientist, founder, CEO, I'm also a mentalist. I'm amazing at predicting what the future looks like. On a personal level, Lillian, it's really wonderful working with you again. And congratulations on taking that AI world by storm. So there are a few different shifts, three key shifts that are making AI integration not just possible right now, where we're not talking what could theoretically happen, but is actually changing, what's actually transforming business. Three big shifts. Number one, augmentation. And notice I'm not saying replacement. I'm talking about making people better, giving them better tools to do their job. Number two, how to connect without rebuilding. And number three, maybe most importantly, how to justify this. You don't want to sacrifice all your political capital on just getting a project improved. So first, a question that I get asked at least once privately, if not publicly, every single time I present. Every time I talk about AI, and this has been true since December of 2022 when ChatGPT came out, somebody always comes up to me, and generally it's done in a whisper, and they say, yeah, but aren't we all getting replaced? Uh, Side note, some people seem to want me to answer yes to that question. I don't know if they're just really hopeful to maybe be on universal basic income. But actually, the answer is no. Okay. If you happen to be still closing your books with Excel and a prayer, okay, maybe you're getting replaced. But AI is not coming to take your job. The good news, it's coming to take the parts of your job that you secretly hate and you don't have time for anyway. And then you get to do the really cool, fun stuff. But that's assuming that you're using AI. You're using it as a force multiplier. You're using it as something to take away the tedious parts of your job and make the parts of your job that are uniquely human happen a whole lot faster. I'll give you a recipe for getting replaced. Go into your next performance review and say these words. I have chosen, yes, I chose not to use a really valuable productivity tool. Matter of fact, I fought against it. I told everybody they shouldn't be using it. Now, let's talk about that promotion. And congratulations, you might actually get terminated within 60 days. They probably have to put you on a performance improvement plan and give you a little bit of a window. Don't be that person. Don't be the one that fights against it. Be the one that leads that future. And I talked about this in a webinar, seems like forever ago. Was that just last week? 2 weeks ago, I did a webinar on how to use AI to keep your job. That's not the point of today. Today, we're going to talk about how AI can help every one of you. So one of the things they tell you to do is think of AI like the world's best intern. This is changing somewhat. I now think of it as a really well-meaning college graduate that has no real-world business experience. So not just interning while it's graduating from college, but this is its first real job. It's having a hard time adulting. It's graduated from college and it is out there trying to figure out how to boost your productivity. Now, it's more helpful than the person on their first day. I don't know, ask where the lunchroom or the bathroom is. It doesn't mind doing the same thing 1,000 times. It doesn't sit in meetings wondering why that could have been an email. It just gets stuff done. And then it hands it to you in a really, really wonderful way, suitable for presentation, provided you rather calmly ask for the right thing. If you give it an ambivalent direction, you're going to get an ambivalent answer. And I'm going to tell you how to do that. But one of the nice things about AI is it doesn't just go, okay, I'm taking over this new intro role. It doesn't need an org chart. It doesn't say this is my role and this is my responsibility. It can handle anything, and it's willing to answer anything for everybody. It could be helping your CFO who maybe wants a top line view and maybe trends where you're going and scenarios that you could be facing. It can be your controller that needs rock solid transactional accuracy. It can be an analyst. It could help out in treasury. It could help out in planning, FP&A, you name it. It speaks every language, every dialect of finance. So think about it as, I need a better term than multilingual, multi-financial analyst. It knows everybody's KPIs, never forgets to loop you in. It knows how to combine data far better than a human ever actually could. And there are things that are keeping us up at night. And I don't know what these are. It might be uh, maybe we're concerned about security. Maybe we're concerned about data privacy. So I'm going to put a poll up really quick. It's about give you like 17 different possible answers. When it comes to using AI right now, and I'm not saying going out and talking to ChatGPT, but actually truly integrating it into your tech stack, what's your biggest concern? What's your biggest consideration right now? Give you about 20 more seconds because it probably take you 20 seconds to read the options. And yes, you can only choose one. So this is your top, your biggest consideration. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So number one is we have a whole lot of stuff already, right? We've got an ERP, we've got financial systems, we probably have some EPM solutions. We doubtless have Excel, the universal duct tape of business. How do we get that all integrated? Security and data privacy concerns. None of us probably want to go upload all of our confidential financial data and forecasts to OpenAI's training data set. Finding the right AI tools. Yeah, our problem right now is not too few, it's too many. I saw something the other day that said since ChatGPT was launched a mere 2.5 years ago, there have been over 30,000 software companies launched to put products on top. And lack of internal technical expertise. Yeah, who do you turn to when you want to get all this done? So thank you. I don't know if this is necessarily keeping you up at night, but we all have these fears. We all have these concerns. So thank you for sharing your little internal monologue with me. Whatever report you provide to somebody, they're going to ask for something different. If you give them a report that has, I don't know, accounts on the side, time across the top, they're going to go, that's awesome. But can you take it down to the quarters, take it down to the months, take it up to the year? Maybe you have a column of actual, maybe you have a column of budget. You give them a beautiful 3-page P&L that some consulting company charge you millions and millions of dollars to implement and spit out that P&L. First time you hand it to somebody, they're going to go, that's awesome at 5 pages. Can you give me a quick summary of it? And by the way, can you give it to me at the end of the day? And then you have to kind of smile through the pain while you're quietly hyperventilating, do whatever the business version is of Lamaze breathing. If you actually have a virtual financial analyst, you get to ask the exact same question, but you're asking it of it. You're not asking it of a human, and it's going to reply in seconds, and it's going to give you charts, and it's going to give you context, and it's not going to give you an annoying Slack message. The second you decide you want something, you can go out and get it for yourself. Because quarters are a rinse and repeat situation. Every quarter, every month, frankly, is the month or the period ends, we do various repetitive activities to get the books closed. We scramble, maybe we take a brief breather to figure out why we made our certain life choices, and then we repeat them. So period end, close, scramble, period end, close, scramble. Now that cycle compresses. So it's not that you still don't have to explain budget overruns. It's that you're able to do them during the period. You're able to do them faster. You have a breakdown of, I don't know, who to blame and why. Like all the data is out there for you. So Lillian's not the only one. I want to brag. I also talk to CFOs. And this came from one I was talking to who said AI, they had no budget for it for 25. And then someone did kind of a skunkworks project. And she said, oh, well, let me go interact with this and see how it works. She said it was amazing seeing an analyst not use Excel. It can read Excel files, it can write to Excel files. She said the first thing I was amazed at is it wasn't trying to solve everything with Excel. And she said, and these are her words, I now have a senior analyst who doesn't need sleep, salary, or supervision, which is a little bit creepy because this is not what we want for our humans, but it's awesome we can get it from our AI. This is completely accurate. But when you're putting in place a virtual financial analyst, a virtual treasurer, a controller's assistant, this is not about throwing. So that number one concern that came back before about integration complexity, this is not a multi-year rip and replace apocalypse. You don't have to go buy a bunch of AI software products. You don't have to upgrade to the newest version and spend months, years trying to implement this thing that's supposed to be out of the box. AI is an overlay. I'm going to talk about this in a few different ways. So think of AI like a translator. It sits between your existing systems and you. And all those questions that no one has time to answer, it's able to translate those, go get the data, and return it. And it doesn't care if your data is all kinds of different systems. You can have an ERP that's in Oracle. You can have a data warehouse that's in Snowflake. You can have dashboards built in, I don't know, duct tape, Power BI, Tableau. And then no matter how beautiful it is, you're probably exporting it to Excel. AI is fine with it. It can translate between all of those systems, and you don't even need to have it in the same format. It doesn't care if you've got account numbers come out of the ERP that have no dashes, and coming out of your EPM system, they say ACCT space, and then they have account number with dashes. It can figure it all out. AI is, this is a Star Trek reference, it's your universal translator. So yes, in old school Star Trek, we had to have a human that figured out how to translate between the languages, but nowadays we don't. That's what you're getting out of AI. So at this point, you're all like, that's really inspiring. If nothing else, I got to see some pretty slides. Well, I'm going to show you one pretty slide and then jump into something else. So W.C. Fields, probably apocryphally, once said, never work with animals or children. And if he had been alive today, he would have probably added or live demos. So I'm going to do something completely stupid and ridiculous. I'm going to do a live demo of a solution that we've been working on. This is for a company. I won't say the name of the company, but they didn't want to continue to hire people for various reasons. It's hard to find them nowadays, and I'll cover some of these reasons a little bit later. But they said, let's just try this. The next time we have a job opening, let's just see if we can have AI do that need. And what they found was they were able to build a solution with us. They were able to build it quickly and cost less than a human actually did. So these are not pre-recorded videos. This is not cutaways. This is just me, my VFA, my virtual financial analyst, the unpredictable thrill of real-time data. I'm going to work without a net. If this crashes, I'm going to call it a lesson in presentation disaster recovery. Not sure that's a term, but it is now. So you can have one of these two. It'll sit on whatever your existing technology is. It's all about finding use cases. And this is just one use case that you can use AI for. If you ask if AI can do it, it probably can. But I am going to now live demo something straight out of the Capris lab. So this is not the actual customer's data. We've stripped it out and put some artificial information in. But I'm going to go to lab.capris.ai. By the way, you can't do this. You don't have login information, so don't try. So lab.capris.ai. So first of all, where is it pulling the data? In my case, you can connect it to a SQL data source. You can give it a query. I loaded up some financial information. I loaded up some consolidated financial systems into it. But let's go over here. So it's already doing some analysis because I gave it the financials. So when I first went in, these are not static. What it's actually telling me is having analyzed your data, and in this particular case, we actually fed it the job description for what the company wanted to do. So it'll look at things like projects a bit more heavily, and you're like, why is it kind of obsessed with projects and the ROI on projects and the portfolio as a whole project? That's literally because that particular company's financial analyst, they asked them to do project analysis. So it's skewing a little more that way. If you said, I don't know, we're running a retail company, it's going to skew more towards looking at stores. This particular company actually is opening new locations. So when they open new stores, those come across as a project. But it's also looking at KPIs that it thinks are interesting in the data. So the overall portfolio ROI, awesome, 3.2% above target, looking at about 18.3% year over year. Pretty good in the retail build-out industry. 24 projects, 8 I could actually dive into more. Net present value, we're up 15% over the last quarter that we had data for. I won't go into this, but there are things it wants me to be aware of. I don't have time to demo the entire thing, but for instance, some of the risks might be we just got a new budget update and people are budgeting a completely ridiculous growth percentage. The thought process, there's no thought process to back it up. So let's go figure out how to actually get it back in the realms of reality. We call it the budget assumption finder. It goes and figures out what's weird. So it might be something like that. It might be your data doesn't tie. It might be, I don't know, assets don't equal liabilities and equity, but we can go dive into it. So down below, it's going to look at some AI generated insights for me. So the IT project, it notices is running over at 25%, recommended immediate budget review and vendor renegotiation. Oh, by the way, this is all AI generated text. So it's not like there's a threshold, we had to pre-program it. You know, oh, when the project hits 24.99%, fire them. No, it's just basically saying this particular project, we need to go back to the vendor. New store location analysis, we actually could get higher ROI than we're forecasting. That's pretty cool based on some demographic data. It can go out and get external information. Supply chain disruption may impact the Q1 margins by 3 to 5%. And then I could dive into the analysis, the details, the impact if I want to. I've got a few different projects coming up. There's a store expansion, so not a new build, but a store expansion off in Miami. And if I wanted to, I could have it dive into some analysis on it. This one's on track. The IT infrastructure project, as we saw up here, is a 25% overrun. So at this point, we're still in some ROI, but it's going to be a lot slower than I intended. We're also building out a distribution center. And I could actually dive through if I wanted to all, however many it was, 20 plus projects it's analyzing, 24. Or I could just look at the high priority ones or the at-risk ones. But let's do something a financial analyst would do pretty regularly. So that's just my starting heads up dashboard. I like to think of it as the 3 to 5 things that'll get me promoted today. If we go get and solve them, the 3 to 5 things will get me fired if I don't. So let's go look at some new analysis. These are the ones that we kind of gave it the language for ahead of time and said, probably by default, offer up analyzing an income statement, a balance sheet, a cash flow, doing some project analysis. You could have your own, but let's do income statement. Okay, so it's looking at Q1 of 2025, comparing it to Q1 of 2024. So this is my nice AI executive summary, generated ridiculously quickly. Ask a human to do it and see if they can beat 2.3 seconds. It's 96% confident it's an analysis. That's another thing as humans, they either 100% positive it's going to happen, they're 100% positive it's not going to happen, or they allow that it might happen. So at least it's telling me what it thinks. Performance, pretty strong quarter. We got revenue growth of 8.7%, a whole lot better than like going negative, expanding margins. Key driver, got some great operational leverage. We're doing great OpEx growth. We are getting some margin compression. So we're getting pressure on the cost of goods side. And down below, it's not repeating the income statement. This is not the place I would go to say, issue me, and I'll show you somewhere else I could do that. This is not where I would say go out and produce like an income statement or schedule it to distribute. This is just some kind of key metrics off of the income statement. So there it is comparing 25 versus last year. Show me what the variance is. Congratulations, I've made $100,000 more. Here's my variance percentages. It's calculating some metrics that thinks are relevant. And this, again, all AI driven. Gross margin, 40%. Oh, that's looking really cool. Net margin, 7.8. EBITDA margin, 14.4. Hey, it's up 58.1% over what I expected. So awesome. Inevitably, somebody will export it to Excel, so we allow that. Let me actually go back. I'll skip scenario modeling for a second and I'll come back to it, but I'll look over at automated reporting. So automated reporting, there are various templates that it has already been running. I could tell it if I wanted to go show me some recent reports that it ran. I was playing around with it yesterday and today. That's why you see 2 hours ago, I generated an executive summary. I'll probably do that again just to show you what it looks like in real time. I did some Miami store expansion yesterday, so let's go back. So let's notice we've generated 1,247 reports. I think this is a fun metric. Congratulations, we have generated 12% more reports than the prior period. We have some people subscribing to these. It takes 2.1 minutes. Hopefully it will not take that long when I tell it to generate in a second. And it's able to go find the data it needs 97.2% of the time. In case you're going, why isn't that 100%? There are cases where I could ask it to go get data that it just doesn't have access to, or it can't figure out how to join it. So this isn't like a traditional EPM or ERP where I have to take all the data, export it all out, go re-import it all back in this exact specific format. It's actually able to go into my data sources and start writing queries that it has access to various tables to see if that data actually makes sense. So somebody could have asked it for something weird, like, I don't know, is a hot dog really a sandwich, and automate that report. It's like, there is no good answer to that question. Obviously, it's not a sandwich. It's a hill I'll die on. So I'm not going to schedule right now. I'll create something new. So I'll do executive summary. By the way, these are a few pre-built reports that I had out there, pre-built report concepts. It doesn't mean that it's pre-run this. So I could do some financial performance. I could do some cool custom analysis where the AI figures out what it wants to show us. I could look at more kind of KPIs. In this case, I'm going to say, show me an executive summary, because executive summaries are great fun. Plus, I know it won't take 2.3 minutes. And then I go down here and click next. This particular company, they wanted to connect it to their German-based ERP, whose name shall remain nameless. Oh no, wait, it's right there. It's SAP. They also wanted to be able to pull in some CRM data. There's also some spreadsheet data sitting out there, and it's available. I don't really need it in this case. You know, it's going to be more of an SAP concept. Time period. Let's look at Q1 25. Notice it lets me, based on the data it has access to. It's like, okay, you're probably going to run it for the current period. You're probably not going to go back and rerun it for Q1 of 23. You could, but I'm going to say Q1 of 25. Primary audience. Let's say I'm doing a board report. That means it'll make a quick, probably should do I think it's about a 4-slide report. Focus area. Oh, depending on the audience that you're talking to, you're going to focus on different metrics. So say your company is, I don't know, it's been losing money for the last few months. Well, you might want the focus to be on how you're getting more operational efficiency. So focus more on expense cutting. Focus more maybe on how you're trying to get more profitable. Maybe you're going into an uncertain economic environment. Well, you might want to focus on risk assessment. Maybe you're governmentally controlled. You're in healthcare or banking or defense. Well, you might want to more kind of, here's how we are staying tried and true to every report we need to generate. In my case, growth and expansion sound like more fun. I can give it custom instructions down below. This is just free text. Like I could tell it, make sure you add a section that compares by month for the last 10 months. Or, hey, make sure you focus on our new Miami store because it looks really cool. I don't know, it has animatronics in the window, kind of looks like Disney World, whatever. You could tell that down below. Or you could say, take a certain tone. Like rather than just a generic board of directors, you might say, our board of directors, they're a lot of nice people. I'm sure they're not puppy kickers, but they're really tough on financials. So make sure you cite every one of your sources. So you could say, cite your sources down here. ready to generate the report. So it's going to extract and analyze my data, create some visualizations, highlight some findings, generate some insights, tailor my content, provide some actual recommendations. Awesome, go for it. This is where we see if it takes 2.3 minutes. Estimated time 2 to 3. That was not 2 to 3. So well done. Well done on how fast it generated, not so well done on the estimation. By the way, AI gets faster all the time. And it gets cheaper all the time. The OpenAI O3 model, which is their reasoning model, um, 2 weeks ago was $10 per million tokens for the best model pretty much on Earth right now. It's now $2 per million tokens. So things will get faster. This is not like an ERP or a database where it gets slower over time. So it did some analysis based on what I told it to. So Q1 financial performance, my revenue went up. Oh, thank gods. Here's my net profit margin. Here's my EBITDA increase, my cash flow increase. And I could go through the various slides. It's a little 4-slide executive summary. So here's my revenue performance breakdown. By the way, these are meant to be, because I told it was a board of directors presentation, it's meant to be slides. So that's how it's going to export out. So I could save it off. I could save it as a PDF. I could save it as a PowerPoint. Uh, Operational KPIs. Here are the ones where look how awesome we are, board of directors. But yeah, there's still some work to do. Our market share is below target. We can go see what that actually is. Or maybe I want a financial forecast. So let me know kind of based on where I've been, what I'm trending to. Now, it's not actually just pulling in budget for right here. It's actually doing some trending based on some historical run rate. Market volatility, growth, probably plus or minus 5%. Supply chain disruptions, and there's a new competitor coming in Q2. And if I want, I could pull it all together. I could just save it off. Once I save it off, it's a report out there and ready for me going forward. Okay, let me go back to my top level. I've got a few other things out here. I could go do some M&A analysis. Maybe we're thinking about buying a company and want to make sure they'll integrate well. I'll just show you one more thing, and then I'll get back to, cool, what does this all take? It sounds like Edward's setting us up to spend 5.5 years doing a project. Don't implant that in your brain. Does not take 5.5 years. But I'll show you one last thing just because I think this is super cool. Scenario modeling. In this case, I could actually go up and tell it I want to create a new scenario, but just for funs and grins, I'm going to have it run, yeah, 10,000 simulations seems about good. Not to be a statistics class, but Monte Carlo simulations essentially say within a certain bound, run all the random permutations and figure out kind of what your worst case is, best case, and you can kind of figure out what your average is going to look like. And I'll tell it to run a Monte Carlo simulation. That was disturbingly fast. And I could look at it in a histogram. I could do sensitivity analysis, but notice it's saying, okay, my gross margin, um, based on the randomness that the world does happen, it could be up to 19.62% lower, up to 19.62% higher than I'm looking at. By the way, this will change each time. And it's showing me the ones that will affect the most. So my revenue could be, well, there's why my gross margin is going to be 19.62 off, is my revenue is going to be 19.62 off. My expenses, they're pretty much going to be in a much smaller range. My revenue growth rate could go from negative to being positive. And then if I like, yeah, well, go run another 10,000 simulations or go run a 1,000 simulations out there. I could do it again, and I'm going to get different results. Notice this is my expected net present value, my standard deviation. Doing things like this historically requires either a pretty expensive tool or hopefully you got one with your EPM suite, but now it's available out there for you. And you can tell it what your constraints are really easily. So I can say, my revenue, I'm going to allow up to 15% variance on revenue. Let me know how much that affects me. Or I want to crank this thing up to a 28% or a 15%. Tell it what the bottom level is, tell it what the minimum and maximum is. And based on whatever I'm analyzing, which in this case is annual revenue, it's going to go figure out the rest of the P&L based on it. The key goal, what is my base case? What is my best case? What is my worst case? There is one more thing I'm going to show you, but I'm going to wait a second. It's going to be over on this tab. I just wanted to tease you all with it. By the way, if you have questions on this, any of this, I just wanted to show you kind of what could happen in the real world. Just toss those in the little Q&A button that should be down at the bottom. And if we have time at the end, I'm happy to talk through this all. The number one question that I would have if I was you, how long are we actually talking? You're probably having that question because I just implanted it into your brain. So this isn't a 6-month painful IT slog where nothing gets done. They don't even get new computers installed because we're off working on this AI project. This also isn't a 1 to 5 year project. So this is not like building a data warehouse or implementing a new ERP. Here's the wonderful thing about AI projects. You can, from scratch, custom and create a solution, and it takes weeks or even days. It does not take months or years. Most of the wiring that's happening for this behind the scenes is in a low code or even no code environment. So you don't need to have your IT department learn a bunch of, I don't know, Python or R or React. If you can build a pivot table, if you even just stood next to someone who's built a pivot table, you can connect this. It's built for speed. It is not built for the most complicated IT ceremonial project you've ever created. And it does work differently than a traditional system because your data actually is not rehoused. If there's certain things you want to speed up or you always want to have like loaded into memory, yeah, you could, I don't know, take a PDF of all your financials, you could load a trial balance up, or you can have it go get it from wherever it is. So your data lives where it's been being stored. Um, Now, I know that in addition to where our data is supposed to be, we're all about one spreadsheet formula away from chaos. But at least theoretically, our data sits in databases or data warehouses or data marks or data lakes or data followed by some other common noun. I kind of want to riff now on random data terms. Let's make one up. Ooh, uh, it's 2025. Have you even hitched your data wagon to your data horses, or are you still living in a data desert? Okay, I'm digressing just to see who was paying attention. The point is, your data is all over the place. It's in a data something. It's in an ERP or multiple ERPs because you bought some companies. It's in HCMs. It's in CRMs. It's in Excel, hell, everywhere. But here's the good news. AI doesn't care. You just sit AI on top of everything, wherever it resides, and you don't need to worry about joins and views and mapping tables and pre-built queries and denormalizing your R3, I don't know, star Snowflake schema. You let AI figure out what data it needs, and you let AI write the queries to get to it. We did this recently. We took 5 of the biggest tables at a company, and we asked questions in natural language. We never told the AI this table has this data dictionary. It has these definitions. These fields these fields mean this. We just let you ask questions in English, and then it actually tried writing various queries based on what it could see, the field names, the records, and whatnot, to pull data back. And it iterated through it. Actually, kind of thought like a human would, like, oh, based on that query, it's not quite what I was looking for. Let me try it again. And we actually had it even display how it was trying various different queries. And generally in 2 to 5 queries, it's got the exact answer back you need. And here's the cool thing, no human has to tell it ahead of time. Also, it kind of puts an end to garbage in and garbage out. The AI, because it's sitting on that data, it can actually think through, does this data make sense? So it's figuring out what actually is garbage. And it's figuring out also how to correct it. It might be garbage because this join doesn't make sense, but it knows that. It might be garbage because somebody flipped the signs on, I don't know, all the liabilities and equity. AI will help end the days of garbage in and garbage out. So what are companies doing? They are throwing chatbots at it all. Now, partly this is because ChatGPT is now the #4 most popular website on planet Earth, which is astounding. For anybody that doesn't know, I think was it yesterday? Yesterday, it was in the last week. OpenAI announced they've hit $10 billion in trailing 12-month annual recurrent revenue. So yeah, companies are pretty mesmerized by chatbots. A lot of them, they have a 2-pronged strategy for rolling AI out. Prong number 1, they create a governance committee and tell everybody what they are not allowed to do in AI. Prong number 2, they buy everyone copies of either ChatGPT or Copilot. They don't give them any training whatsoever. And then they think everyone's magically going to get more productive. I mean, hey, it works for kids in high school. Give them access to ChatGPT, and all of a sudden their scores skyrocket on tests. Their essay writing really, really improves. Why are companies doing this? Why are they giving chatbots to everybody? Well, first of all, we all use them in our personal life. Probably we should have one at work, but it's also a pretty cheap solution. You're talking roughly 20 bucks per user per month. And at least those companies can say, look at us, we're AI forward. Now, don't get me wrong, conversational UI is really cool. It's a whole lot better. Rather than you hand an income statement to every cost center manager on planet Earth and expect them to be an analyst, it's a whole lot better if you let those cost center and profit center managers have a chatting interface to get their data back and ask questions like they're talking to a human. But it's useless if you don't connect it to actual data. It doesn't do you any good to tell your shipping manager, oh, you have a question about your financials? Go log into chatgpt.openai.com and start asking it questions. It needs to understand your information. It needs to speak the language of your business. So the first thing you have to do is you have to build the plumbing. You saw in that demo I just showed you, very first thing I did is I clicked on data sources and told it where my data actually was. Otherwise, what you've got is a really smart sounding talking parrot. It doesn't know anything about your financials. I've done this to mess with ChatGPT, where I've given it no information and I've said, please compare last quarter versus the prior quarter. Focus on revenue. And it will come back and tell me about how awesome my revenue is. I gave it no information. It's just finishing sentences for me. You have to give it data or you're going to get hallucinations. That said, if you need to go cheat on some exam, congratulations, your company just bought you the tool to do it. We need to get something a whole lot better. So I'm going to show you something super secret and confidential. I'm just going to blast it out to all of you webinar attendees. Now, I'm going to show you what you would never do in ChatGPT. So you're all the CFO of a hospital, and you want to know which departments are bleeding budget, or which ones are trending up in revenue, or I probably shouldn't say bleeding budget about hospitals, which ones are trending up, which ones are trending down. What you don't want to do is go talk to your really, really busy financial analyst because they might quit. You can't replace them. You don't want to have to go shoot off emails or Slack messages to 3 directors and wait 2 days. You really just want to ask an AI and you want a reply instantly. And you want at least a high level bit of information, if not department level detail. You want year-over-year trends. You maybe want to find which annoying little vendor just tripled their rates and nobody caught it. No one's feelings get hurt. No data gets leaked. What you want is actually answers. So I'll flip over back to here. And I just loaded this up. It's a blank screen. So what's loaded behind the scenes is financial data for a hospital. And this actually is real data for a hospital out of Maryland. And in case you're going, Edward's about to expose something you shouldn't. This particular hospital, it's part of the nonprofit system in Maryland. They have to expose their financial data. So that's the data that this is. So if you want it, you go get it yourself, I think, on maryland.gov. So I'm going to say, I don't know, assess year-over-year changes. Oh, you know what? Let's do something more fun. Compare uh, the years from 2019 to 2023. That goes right over COVID. That should be fun. Now, notice it has access to the real data because it's sitting out there. It's in its data system. So it's not pre-generated. It didn't know I was going to ask this because literally I just created the query right now. Revenue. There has been a consistent increase in net patient service revenue from 2019 to 2023, gone from 812 to 982. Well, that seems really good. Oh, a lot of people don't trust AI. So one of the things that we do a lot when we set up these custom private chatbots is we have it cite its sources so that if anybody wants to, they can go click on it and see the data. So that's why you see this little bracketed thing up there. Expense fluctuations. We've gone from expenses down here to now they are higher. They were a little bit higher. They're a whole lot higher now than revenue. We need to manage rising costs effectively. Yeah, because we're actually losing $80 million. Despite fluctuations in individual line items, the overall increase in net assets without donor restrictions was positive. Well, that sounds really cool. Here's our net patient services revenue. Here's our increase in expenses. it gives me some insights because it's being extremely helpful. Oh, by the way, notice it's not assuming I'm an idiot. It's because when we gave it the data, we also told it how to talk to us. And we said, we're financial experts, speak to us like we know what we're doing, as opposed to speaking to me like I'm a 5-year-old. So it tells me how to analyze costs. It tells me some next steps. I don't know. Can you chart revenue for 2023? So it's taking that information from up above. It's actually in this case going off and getting it like live to go pull it all in. And it's saying, sure, let's prepare, I don't know, a line chart. I didn't ask it for the type of chart, so you'll be just as surprised as I am. Trend in net patient service revenue from 2019 to 2023. As depicted, there's been a steady growth in revenue over the years. Well, that sounds super cool. And by this point, it's starting to know what type of questions I'm interested in and what good follow-up questions should be. So what are some strategies to make sure this keeps happening? Maybe I want a revenue report. Maybe I want to schedule an enhancement meeting. I happen to know that there was this pandemic-y thing. Kids read about it in the history books. We'll tell you about the days yonder of COVID-19. Well, by the time we're up to COVID 47. Analyze COVID-19 grants for 2020 to 2023. I'm going to assume the government gave us some money to make sure we didn't go out of business during this time period. Maybe we didn't. You and I can both find out together. So this is the net patient revenue. I think that from a COVID standpoint, the government was trying to step in, making sure hospitals are still available to everybody. So here's my COVID grant income. Significant variability. Well, yeah, because probably there wasn't any in 2019. 2020, we received 44.2 million. We peaked in 2021. Now notice it's offering me some commentary, probably due to heightened need, probably due to government support at the height of the pandemic, decreased significantly to 23 million as the crisis diminished. 2023, it further reduced to 8.7 million. And it gave us an assessment of our impact. And here are some actual recommendations. No, not one of the actionable recommendations is go create another pandemic. It's basically telling you what to do because we've lost this financial aid and support out there. All that type of information you need to be secure. Everybody says, what is it actually doing with the data? And this is a lot of people's arguments for, well, you can't go use AI. It is fully encrypted. It is secure by design. It is encrypted at rest. It's encrypted in transit. Your private financial data is not going and being posted out to the internet. It is definitely not training the next version of your competitor's chatbot. It is staying in your walls. It's staying behind your firewalls. It's staying under your control. And maybe that's not what you want. I don't know. Maybe you want your GL data to be crowdsourced. That's up to you. For most of us, if you're going to go with the chatbot, please, for the love of gods and goddesses, do it with a private chatbot. Don't go use Copilot and ChatGPT. Do it on your own. Give it your data. Tell it exactly how to talk to you. Tell it what business you're actually in. Notice how fast the response gets back. A human analyst takes hours or days or weeks or nevers per report. They chase numbers. They build models. They check formulas. They try and figure out why the sum formulas, including all the rows above. What does pound ref mean? They fix all the broken references from the intern that no longer works here, but the spreadsheet's still called after that person. AI doesn't need to do any of that. It runs that report in 20 seconds. 20 seconds, or hell, some of these things I think came back even faster than that. It takes your analysts and it gets them out of being Excel archaeologists, digging through old data, gets them to start being actual analysts. Because as much as I love humans, some of my best friends are humans, hiring analysts is really expensive, especially new ones, because there just aren't a lot of kids going, you know what, one day I want to grow up and I really want to do the same thing on the third working day of every month because my desire is to be an analyst. They're unavailable. The expense isn't even just salary, it's time, it's training, it's turnover, because you're periodically going to go, I don't want to deal with all this anymore, take this job and shove it. A virtual financial analyst is going to cost you a fraction. It's never going to demand a promotion and it's going to scale. No PTO, no comp time, no complaints about working weekends during close. So I'll ask you to put your internal sales hat on. if you were going to pitch an idea of how to give everyone a superpower, how would you pitch this to your CFO? There's the tried and true. It's going to save us money. You can always say, we were going to pay a new analyst, I'm going to make the number round, $100,000. And that's a recurrent cost per year. Or we can pay $50,000, build a virtual financial analyst. That thing will scale because if we need 5 more analysts, we can just aim it at that little $50,000 purchase we already did, and it can operate 10 times faster. Because maybe that's your pitch. Maybe it costs just as much as that analyst. Maybe you're only paying your analysts, I don't know, maybe they're offshore, near shore, and they cost $30,000 a year. Maybe it's about getting insights faster. Maybe we don't want to wait 24 hours to get an answer back. Maybe we want to get it back right now. Maybe it's we want to get to an AI-driven super fast world before our competitors actually do. But ask yourself how you would pitch this AI. And whatever that message is, it's going to give you ROI, but it could give you ROI in time. It could give you ROI in cost. It could give you ROI in better information faster to the right people. But whatever that is, we have to get our leadership that in some cases is still going, I don't know, I hope maybe IT will figure this out. I love IT in terms of being able to enable this, but they don't know what the use cases are that the office of the CFO is actually running into every day. You want to get some serious speed improvements? Before I turn it over to my amazing and graceful host for the day, one super last quick anecdote. One of the companies I was talking to cut their time to generate a brand new report from 10 days to 2. It used to be that whenever they wanted a new report out, they had to put it in a queue. And somebody over in I think they called it the Business Analytics Center of Excellence, would take 10 days to go create that report and give it back. And if you had a follow-on question, that was another 10 days to get that new report built. Generating that new report, automating it, delivering it with AI is now done at that company in 2 days. That's a cut of 80%. They still do the same thing. They still send it to that center of excellence, but they're using AI to generate it. They didn't do it with a massive reorg. They didn't do it by hiring 10 or 15 new people. That center of excellence just took AI and layered on top of what they already had. That lets people spend more time deciding, less time waiting, less time calculating. Board of directors love things like this. So curious what this would look like for your team if you wanted to build one of those things out. For that, I will hand it back to one of my previously mentioned favorite people on planet Earth, Lillian Buziak.
Thanks, Edward. Before we wrap, we have a few minutes left. There were a couple of questions.
Ooh, fun.
So we'll take 2 minutes to answer two questions. So the first one is from Nima, and he asked, how is data access managed and controlled? So this is around governance, data governance, back to your previous demo that you had showed. And can that same data be leveraged for operational analysis, so for a different function?
Sure. So whatever rights that person normally has access to, you can set up the AI so it has access to the same data. So if, for instance, you got a finance person that's trying to access human capital, even if the AI knows where the HCM data is, the finance person is going to have rights to it because it's actually going to do that query in real time. You didn't quite see it on that screen, but I was actually logged in. It showed a little S up in the corner. That's because that's the user I was logged in as. That particular person is a financial support person, so they saw financial data. It's what you don't want to do is take all the data across, I don't know, maybe if you have 5 people at your company, but you don't want to take the data across the entire company and do select star from all the data and pull it into the AI. You want it stratified out by those individual roles. So operational people are going to see operational data. Finance people are going to see financial data. HR people are able to see HR data. You can either build out a different analyst, a different chat interface for every one of them, or you can actually just let the AI layer decide. That's what I recommend nowadays is based on their ID, it's using that ID to go run the query. And if that ID that they're logged in with that single sign-on doesn't have rights to see the tables, the AI is not going to give the data back. But this is not a case of you have to go dump it into OpenAI, you have to go dump your data into Anthropic. It's actually querying and looking at your data where it resides. Hope that makes sense. What was your other question?
Okay, so next question is from Gary Chrissy. It's funny. He says AI seems to learn like children do. So it will largely learn what you tell it, but also seems to learn what it observes. So his question is, how do we guardrail against the AI adopting our bad habits in addition to what we tell it to do?
Uh, there are a couple of ways. First of all, you can tell it at the beginning what its good habits should be. For instance, when you're giving it, because there actually are instructions that you weren't seeing. Like when I was talking to that hospital chatbot, notice how it immediately assumed I had financial knowledge. That's because I told it I have financial knowledge. I also told it some things like cite your sources, which humans are pretty horrible at. Humans like, I think that number was about 40. Sure, that number was 40. It doesn't actually learn that behavior because I pre-specified all those instructions within it. You are correct. It will take on a learned behavior. It's a little bit different than the old method of like machine learning or reinforcement learning, but it will go down the train of thought you're going down. So it will learn, for instance, Edward, once he asks about revenue, always then wants to see year over year, and then he always wants to do trending. You can let it do that, or you can say, as part of the instructions, analyze and see if that makes sense. Would it not make more sense to start with net income? And then if net income isn't working, go look at gross margin. If gross margin isn't working, then go look at this. Like you can give it best practices. Um, I'm gonna, since you're using the kid metaphor, you can tell it, practice what I'm preaching, not what I'm doing. And you can tell it, this is what I'm preaching to you to go do. Because you're right, humans are our own worst enemies. I mean, that's inevitably what we're going to be doing wrong. Let's make the AI smarter. Let's, even if humans can make children who are serial killers, let's make sure we're not making AI that's a serial killer. And on that note, I'll pivot back to you, Lillian.
Great. Thanks, Edward. And that demo was super cool. Thank you for running through that. Okay, so, thank you everybody for joining us. And before we go, if you, stuck with us, thank you. And just a few takeaways before we end. First, humans are still the most important. We are important. So don't fire anybody, but think twice before hiring anybody new. You know, talk to us, talk to, your team who is investing in AI. Ask ChatGPT and see what they come back with. But build for augmentation, but don't replace. And then integrate and don't rip out anything. So, and then justify. So justify the value. What is the ROI? What does this mean to your organization? So, just whatever you learned and what the takeaway it is for you today, don't let it just sit in that pile of interesting ideas, right? There are tons of information out there. There are integration playbooks. We offer readiness assessment, and just talk to people who will able to help you turn your current tech stack into a superpower by integrating AI. So with that, I'm going to wrap up, and we do have some upcoming educational webinars. We'll also be at Kscope, which is coming up in Dallas next week. So if you are out there, please come say hello. But here are some additional webcasts that will be running through the end of June and into July. And with that,
Yes, please come to the June 26th one because it's about time to start budget season, and I want to help you all figure out what you should budget for 2026.
good idea. I got it's crazy. That's already, halfway through 2025. Okay. And if you enjoyed this session, scan the QR code and you can download the presentation and connect with us. So thank you everybody for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank y'all. Have an awesome week. Maybe I'll
Bye.
see you at Kscope.